Captain Ethan Walker had flown hundreds of flights over oceans and continents, but nothing prepared him for the moment he first laid eyes on Olivia Bennett, the new flight attendant at Atlantic Star Airlines. With her honey blonde hair pinned neatly in a French twist, deep blue eyes that sparkled like the Pacific at dawn, and a laugh that could warm the coldest cabin, she moved with the grace of someone born to fly. And from that first briefing, something stirred inside him. Subtle but strong. Like turbulence in clear skies, a magnetic pull that grew stronger with every layover and every flight they shared. At first it was just lingering glances during pre-flight checks, playful exchanges over headset channels, the occasional brush of hands when passing coffee in the galley, but each interaction deepened their connection, and by the time they found themselves on Flight 162 from New York to Rome, a red-eye with only 70 passengers and a quiet hum enveloping the fuselage, their feelings had evolved from subtle sparks to a fire they could no longer ignore. The night sky outside was littered with stars, and inside, the dimmed cabin lights turned the aircraft into a dreamscape where rules blurred with desire. And when Ethan stepped out of the cockpit at cruising altitude, he found Olivia alone in the aft galley, restocking snacks, her silhouette soft under the LED glow, and when she turned to see him, the space between them dissolved like mist. He took her hand without a word, drew her close, and their lips met in a kiss that felt like a promise, not rushed, not reckless, but aching with all the moments they hadn't touched before. And as they kissed again, deeper this time, their bodies melted into each other in a cocoon of warmth and longing, hands wrapped around backs, fingers threaded into hair, uniforms rumpled with affection, hearts pounding louder than the engines as the airplane cruised high above the Atlantic. The galley curtains swayed gently as they embraced, exchanging soft laughs and stolen kisses, her head resting on his chest as he whispered how long he'd been waiting to do that, and she told him she'd felt it too. Every moment they shared, every look, every heartbeat that skipped mid-flight, and time seemed suspended in the pressurized haven of their own universe, even as passengers slept unaware just a few rows away. And when Ethan returned to the cockpit, breathless and elated, the air itself felt lighter, the sky more infinite. And he flew the next few hours with a secret smile, glancing back through the open door whenever he could, catching glimpses of Olivia working gracefully in the aisle, the woman who now held his heart at 36,000 feet. But just as the flight settled into that perfect cruising rhythm somewhere above southern Europe, a sharp alarm pierced the calm, red indicators flashing on the instrument panel. The cabin pressure had dropped slightly, but inexplicably. No signs of mechanical failure, just a warning of something wrong in the rear cargo hold. And when Ethan contacted Olivia on the crew channel, her voice came through, tight and alarmed. "Ethan, I just heard a hissing sound near the service hatch. Something's off." And before he could reply, the cockpit monitor that displayed external footage lit up with a feed from the tail camera, and both he and the co-pilot, Marshall, stared in stunned silence as a dark figure appeared, moving in the cargo area, dressed head to toe in black tactical gear, clearly not a crew member or stowaway, but someone who had either boarded undetected or entered the aircraft mid-flight. Something nearly impossible but now terrifyingly real, and Ethan's heart dropped. Sabotage, in the middle of the air, while they were carrying over 70 lives and the woman he loved. He instructed Olivia to lock the cabin doors and stay with the other attendants, but her reply didn't come. Only static, and dread surged through him as he unstrapped, told Marshall to take over, and dashed through the main cabin, trying not to alarm the passengers as he passed rows of sleepers and headphones, racing toward the aft section, where he found the galley empty, curtains swaying like a warning, and the maintenance hatch just slightly ajar, a faint metallic hiss escaping through the crack. Without hesitation, he descended into the service corridor below, flashlight in one hand, crew-issued sidearm in the other, and just as he turned the corner near the rear access bay, he saw her, Olivia, struggling in the grip of the masked intruder, her arms flailing, eyes locked with Ethan's in silent desperation, and rage exploded in his chest as he aimed and shouted, "Let her go." But the man pulled a small black device from his belt and tossed it, a flashbang. Blinding light and sound erupted in the narrow corridor, disorienting Ethan, who stumbled but fired twice, hitting nothing as the blast echoed off the walls. But through the ringing in his ears he heard Olivia scream, and he pushed forward, adrenaline overriding pain, tackling the attacker in the dark, their bodies colliding hard as fists flew and metal clanged, until finally, with blood dripping from a cut on his forehead and pain stabbing his side, Ethan overpowered the man, slamming him against a crate and pinning him with a zip tie snatched from the emergency kit. And when the dust settled and the corridor fell silent again except for the hum of engines, he rushed to Olivia's side. She was bruised but breathing, her lip bleeding, but her voice steady as she clutched him, whispering his name like it was the only thing keeping her grounded, and he kissed her then, desperately, holding her like she might vanish, swearing under his breath he'd never let anything happen to her again, and together they climbed back up, dragging the unconscious attacker into the cabin, where shocked passengers began to stir and the co-pilot prepared for an emergency landing in Rome. Law enforcement was already waiting on the tarmac, and as Ethan gave his statement, holding Olivia's hand the entire time, they learned the intruder was a mercenary hired by a disgruntled ex-employee of the airline, an attempt at corporate revenge that nearly turned fatal, and as the story made headlines over the next few days, mid-air mystery foiled by heroic crew, Ethan and Olivia stayed mostly out of the spotlight, finding solace in each other, sharing quiet breakfasts in hotel rooms, recovering from bruises both visible and hidden, and when they flew back to New York together on a different flight, he asked her, at 30,000 feet over the Atlantic once again, if she'd like to make their love story more than just something that happened in the skies, and she said yes, without hesitation, tears in her eyes and laughter in her throat, and they kissed again in the galley, this time without fear. Their story no longer just one of passion and peril, but of survival, fate, and a kind of love that even altitude couldn't hold down.